Hi, and thank you everyone for joining this second session that we are hosting alongside Microsoft for the UK Policing webinar series. So today, following on from the session that we had last week, we're going to be talking again about hybrid working and how we're helping to embed that flexible working culture within police forces. Today's session is going to be talking around Power Platform and how we can help to really drive automation and help to build that flexible working platform. Today we've got Palm from Microsoft. Can we just move the slide on? So we've got Palm Singh from Microsoft who's here, so welcome Palm. Palm works with a lot of our UK police forces, but also with the Home Office, particularly around those business applications. We've got Andrew Hutchinson, who is our Digital Transformation Director and Head of Strategy from Visual. And then there's myself, Caroline Suter, who's I'm an account director here at Visual, and I also look after the UK policing sector as well. So just quickly run through the agenda. So I'm briefly going to talk about Visual, just to give you a little bit of an update on who Visual are. We're going to talk through the journey of the Power Platform and also give you some examples around modernising legacy applications and intelligent automation. We're going to be concentrating more on that managed applications, and also, recognising that we do need to help to skill a lot of police forces to work with Power Platform. So we're going to be talking about what this means from the National Skills Initiative as well. We're then going to be finishing off with an offer, same as we did last time on the last session, but an offer to really help you to get your foot onto the ladder when it comes to Power Platform and really start to explore Power Apps in a lot more detail as well. So as I said, I'm just briefly going to just run through who Visual are. So Visual are a Microsoft expert. We're a UK-based organisation. I think more interestingly for police forces, every single member of or every single employee within Visual is MPPV3 and SE cleared, which is obviously essential when we're working with those police forces. We've been, as I said, 16 years of transforming and really helping organisations to adopt Microsoft technologies. We've got lots of examples of where we've engaged with organisations to really help to transform services and to get the most out of that investment that you make in your Microsoft licensing. A Microsoft Gold Partner across 15 categories. And I think, one of the things that we're really proud of is the Use Your Expert MSP that we've now had for about 3 years, I think it is. But one of those elite Microsoft partners, we work really, really closely with Microsoft, as well as the Microsoft Gold partnerships. We also have 8 Microsoft Advanced specializations, which really set us above and beyond within the partner network itself. Just move on to the slide. So just to give you a little bit of background into our credentials, specifically around policing, we've got a long history of working with police forces, really helping to deliver that innovation and to really develop and support all forms of policing. The strategy that we have here at Visual is not only aligned to the UK policing strategy and the police digital service strategy, but also to Microsoft as well. So that when you're working with Visual, we're really helping you to drive and deliver against both that strategy, but then also the Microsoft best practice as well. We've worked with over 40 forces over the 16-year history, right the way through from Office 365, right the way through to Azure, and most recently really focusing in on some of the core policing platforms, particularly around digital forensics, case custody, crime and intelligence. Our sector planning really does, as I say, really map against the digital strategies, which the NEP and Police Digital Service are working with police forces on as well. So as I said, you know that when you're talking to Visual, we can help you to interpret exactly what that means from a strategic perspective. And now I think I am going to be handing over to Palm, who will take you through this journey and help you to understand how you can lead from the front.
Thanks, Caroline. Good morning, everyone, again. So Palm Singh, lead on biz apps at Microsoft. And yes, it has been a journey, right? This has been a huge journey for policing. When we look back, I guess, on where we were and where we've come from on a Power Platform perspective, on 365 perspective, we are absolutely leaps and bounds. I guess UK policing is actually seen as one of the most favourable organisations across the world when it comes to law enforcement around collaboration. And that's the key bit. It is around collaboration. It is developing this community. We are supporting policing, and it can be one app at a time. We've supported the NEP, PDS with a solutions catalog. That's now growing. They've got around 25 apps on there. Underneath that, you'll see a great Power app based around MG forms. And that, again, has been spreading across policing as we speak. Top right is now assaults on policing. So we have supported Oscar Kilo and how we can try and standardize that approach for officers who report injuries on duties, but also make sure they've got the right supporting mechanisms in place. And then lastly, that Pulsar piece. It's an app that was created by, I think it was an inspector of Lincolnshire almost about a year ago now. But it goes to show, right, whether you're IT, whether you're business, there's so much capability and breadth in the Power Platform. You've got so much you can do with what you are licensed today, absolutely. But it's the most, I guess, the recent conversations I'm now having is we've got some serious legacy systems. We've got a lot of challenging applications today, but they're so crucial. We can't chop and change them, and it's expensive to modernize. It's really expensive to make a change. What can we do with Power Platform? And this is where, I guess, as Visual and Microsoft together, this is really where we take that next step. But that journey so far, it's been fantastic. There's more growing. The catalog is getting bigger, and there's a lot more further down the line. And it's really exciting times now to support a lot across policing, even particularly the Met, for example. They had their own webinar around all the great apps they've created. And we're really proud to see the progress that we have across policing today. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. So kind of going back to my original point, right? This has and is still a journey. If we take this iceberg moment, right, you look at the top and absolutely there is some instant value, instant savings police forces can make today. You've got a huge breadth of capability within 365, and of course with an app, the low-code, no-code way to create applications for whether it's IT or business. Automation, a great way to save time, work smarter, not harder, as they say, and I've got some great examples of those later on. And of course, Power Virtual Agents within Teams. So the Power Virtual Agents within Teams, I think it's certainly getting a lot of traction now, and I'm having a lot of conversations across policing around how can you try and make the best use of that technology. But of course, that's just the top, right? Instant savings, instant value, using standard connectors. But it's actually when we dig in a little deeper, right? If you really want to make the truer, the more harder savings, or driving those greater efficiencies, all those different areas of Microsoft, right, as part of the Power Platform. Whether it's Power BI, whether it's around 365 customer voice, trying to get feedback from your citizens. Dataverse, that intelligent repository where you've got the auditing capabilities, you've got roll-up field calculations, you've got role-based access, chatbots on your website, robotic process automation, AI builder. We even recently, as an Ignite, we've announced as part of the per user and per app plans, you've now got AI builder. You have credits in there. So whether it's around object character recognition, whether it's around object recognition, whether you're trying to do AI machine learning around what you can predict is going to be the outcome, you can have some of those capabilities today, and it's only getting more. And I think the biggest one for me is probably some of that on-prem data gateway. That's where I think we're going to see a lot of opportunity across policing to help modernize. And it's not just that, but it's also the custom connectors. And again, I can share some examples later on how that's being used today. But they're the key things, right? That's how you can help modernize your estate, your legacy apps, which, let's face it, it's hard, right? It is hard. It's difficult to maintain. It's very costly. It's hard to modernize. It's hard to upgrade. And the most important thing is the user experience. We see from the Power Platform that user experience, whether it's through Teams, whether it's a simplified user experience app, whether it's just even going through a chatbot. Officers are fantastic at running into danger and doing everything that a lot of people wouldn't. all they just need is a simple system to use. And whether it's frontline or even back office, there's a lot of opportunity there just to help you as a police force to grow and just improve the way you do things today. I'll hand it across to yourself, Hutch.
Thank you, Farm. So what I wanted to talk about is initially modernising some of those legacy applications. So I've broken that down into a few different areas, but I think Farm touched on it really. A key thing here is improving user experience. So first thing really is breaking down those barriers to adoption. So really interesting study in 2018 from the Comparing Police and Crime Commissioners. It showed that only 45% of police staff in the UK actually approved of their current ITT status. I think when I think about the ultimate goal of technology in policing really is to facilitate officers' day-to-day activities and to increase compliance. I think user experience issues do present a real danger and a significant barrier to wider adoption, and that leads to decision makers, putting aside some systems, for example, and focusing on user-friendly alternatives that do consider end-to-end services that are being provided. There's developing accessible applications, so the real lack of a user-centric approach is one of the main complaints in that survey, and it seems to be quite a common point of contention in the conversations that we're having as a business with forces throughout the UK. You only need to take a look actually at the hashtag WeCops community on Twitter just to see some of that for yourself. Whilst there's been some significant progress since 2018 and since that study, it's clearly a big challenge for UK forces. As I've seen and as Rizal have seen, and I'm sure Palm can attest to this as well, we've seen from the work that the Police Digital Service are doing, the National Enabling Programme, the work that's been done there. I think we collectively expect that more and more forces are going to push for this user-centric, user-friendly approach when they start considering investments in IT. And I think there'll also be a stronger focus on accessibility and general integration with the wider criminal justice system. Improving user experiences is a third one on here, and this is what it kind of comes down to really. So the National Enabling Programme, I've just touched on it, they've really encouraged the adoption of modern tooling, and they've really underpinned the Policing Vision 2025. I think, and I understand actually that 80% of forces have now actually joined one of those NEP pillars, which is really positive and a really good push in the right direction. We're seeing now that the officers can use Microsoft 365 and they can access tools like Microsoft Teams, which will improve their collaboration and their individual and collective user experiences. Modernisation and the replacement of legacy applications like traditional commercial off-the-shelf products. If you replace those with a Microsoft Power Platform, I think you can really start to take this a step further. If you think about consumer-focused tools like the Power Platform, it gives you the ability to create bespoke applications and services, which means that you're not buying something off the shelf that you're only going to use a small percentage of. You're going to create something where you get the maximum value out of that product and that service. It also means, because it's bespoke and because you have those, potentially get those skills or build those skills in-house, that you can improve the user experience, you can update it regularly, and you can update it based on actual feedback. So you're not reliant on a commercial product and changes being applied within a commercial product, for example. So again, it significantly enhances the ability to improve user experiences, but it also enhances your ability to produce something that actually meets a need. And I think that's really powerful, and that's a great opportunity that's presented by something like the Power Platform and specifically Power Apps. So then if I think about modernising and innovating faster, I've alluded to it already. I think in line with the digital skills work and the maturity with the tooling that we're talking about, many of our clients, some forces, some other public sector organisations, they've turned their initial focus as they're maturing towards modernising business applications and automating processes rather than actually wholesale replacement. So rather than trying to replace something outright, they're looking at, well, where can we introduce some functionality, where can we automate or integrate some solutions with the Power Platform that enables us to get significant efficiencies in a much quicker way and enables us to start turning value towards things that really matter, like being out in the public, etc. So if you think about what that can do, that's going to introduce significant cost savings. It's going to remove delays. It's going to introduce efficiencies. And I think in doing that, you can innovate faster, you can reduce those inefficiencies, and ultimately you can solve quite complex business challenges with very little work. I read this, and I can't unfortunately recall where I read it, but there's a great saying about in both ordinary and extraordinary times, such as those that we're seeing or have seen with COVID-19, the success of the organisation is based on your ability to be agile, to be able to respond to a crisis, and to be able to quickly develop solutions for staff and the public. And that's what we're talking about here. This is all about that capability. If I think about some of the KPIs that modernising business applications can help address, you've got things like reducing the IT effort for the development of applications. You've got being able to retire third-party applications, being able to reduce or even remove the burden on IT to maintain those applications. You've got increases in staff efficiency. You've also got an improved time to market for something that's new or even improving something that's already there. If I think about some use cases as well, and you'll hear more use cases hopefully as we go on, one of them, reducing technical debt or IT backlogs by enabling what you commonly hear being referred to as citizen developers, by giving them low-code tooling, enabling them or even professional developers to be able to scale their productivity. You've got the opportunity to replace or upgrade these legacy applications and services, starting to focus on more modern and efficient applications that address a real need. You can integrate line of business systems. That one's really important, and that's something that we're seeing kind of as almost a first step for a lot of organizations, is let's just get to a point where we're integrating some of our systems. And then in doing that, you can connect a lot of applications together. So if you think about an end-to-end service, you can connect those products that fit within that end-to-end service. It gives you seamless data, and it also gives you one version of the truth. So that's a really good use case. And then surprisingly, there's a lot of custom apps that have been produced and created. I don't think anybody would be shocked by that. But many of those aren't really compliant anymore. They're custom built. There's a lot of risk around knowledge being lost when somebody that's developed it leaves the business. Well, by introducing these tools, you can de-risk a lot of that as well. Before I move on and hand back to Palm, I think there's some questions we should all be asking ourselves and each other to really understand how these tools can help. Some of those questions I'll be asking is, are you already working with low-code tools, or do you have a platform or tools that are like that today? And if you are you finding that there's a lack of features, or do you have a lack of skill that prevents you from really using it effectively and reaching the kind of the potential that you think you've got or that your organization has? Do you have manual processes that could be automated or modernized? Do you have unstructured data that, if you brought all that together, so that seamless data integration we talked about, that would give you a lot more value? And are your teams really able to be productive and efficient with your existing tools? They're just some of the questions that I would really ask to start challenging you, but also for you to start asking each other to really challenge each other. Okay, Palm, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you. So, as I kind of mentioned before, I want to share some more examples. And for those in attendance, will probably know me, and I'm always shouting and talking around Cumbria and Durham. But the most important thing here, right, is going back to some of those KPIs and those important points that Andrew mentioned before. To create those apps, they created roughly about 13 apps in around 6 to 8 weeks. That's that speed, that's that return on investment, that's that time to value. And again, going back to Andrew's point as well, it's about modernizing what you've got today, right, and the skills. So not only are the team picking up more skills, but with this example, as you can see from the high-level diagram there, they connected to PNC using the gateway. Then you've got custom connectors in there as well that you can use as a part of the Power Platform. That's a great advocate to say, we've got a legacy system, we want to improve the way things are done today, we want to improve the user experience, we want to increase skills, but that's what the Power Platform technology gives you. It gives you that scalability, it gives you the capability to add those different connectors. And of course, there's lots going on around the skilling piece, which we'll touch on later. Another great example is around the City of London Police. So they've got a bit of a legacy system around fraud. And it's one of those where, again, it's such a significant, huge application, but hugely important at the same time. And it's around how can they just get some quick wins, right? And it is around quick wins. So when you're looking at that audience, when you're looking at those investigation teams, instead of taking 12 to 15 steps just to deal with some investigation, just to try and get to the right data, that's where things like Dataverse comes into it. So they use a custom connector to connect into the system, and Dataverse then just gives them that scalability again for their investigation team to say, right, this is a high priority incident. This is what we need to investigate. We're going to ensure all of our actions are auditable. It's logged. There's appropriate role-based access for those teams. And of course, it's around interrogating that data as well. I mean, it's great that, you know, you may have all of this data in different legacy systems in different places, but it's about bringing it together. You know, we've always said when it comes to the Power Platform, you're not creating more silos of data. Actually, you want to try and bring it together. You want to make insights from unstructured data, and with how you can then inform that next process and support your policing colleagues into making that into tangible actions. And of course, you know, one of the most important bits of throughout everything is just that inefficient process. And that's always the way, right? You know, when you have these different systems, when you have to copy and paste, when you have to go into somewhere else to then make another action, to then email someone else. But ultimately, with what we supported within that one, it's a case of modernizing that legacy application. It's empowering those end investigation teams to do their job quicker and to actually get to the insights, not just to look at the data and go to another spreadsheet and then record their actions on a SharePoint. No, it's all done within Power Platform. It's all unified as part of that data. It's using the existing data that they've got, and they've got a fantastic user experience and a route forward now. That's caused, well, I guess the significant efficiency savings from that, which is, I'm sure, it's its own business case in itself. But it just goes to show, right, no matter how big, bold, ugly, and awful some systems can be, there's always a route to modernize. Now, that's a bit of an extreme version. Obviously, the Durham and Cumbria, you've got a number of different apps that they wanted to create and use PNC gateways, and there's lots more you can do, right? There's lots more. And I know the visual team are working with a couple of different police forces around some of these different national apps as well, and potentially linking into national systems. You know, it becomes a case of, well, why not, right? Why not? You've got the tools, you've got the capability, and as we're going to touch on later on, you've absolutely got the skills. But again, with this whole piece, it's around how can we improve that end user experience? How can we drive efficiencies? How can we start be working smarter, not harder? And most importantly, what tools do we have in policing today that's used universally across policing? You know, when we talk about apps, automation, or chatbots, one unified, one center of excellence, one set of standards, and of course, it's all part of the NEP, right? Absolutely, when it comes to Dataverse and custom connectors, and that's a premium connector and stuff, but the platform itself, absolutely. So that means you can scale this, you can share, you can collaborate, you can borrow with pride. You know, what works well in one force should certainly work well in another. Of course, we will do some tweaks to it, not a problem. But that's the beauty of it, right? And I think it's kind of the first time we're really seeing this in policing today. But the good knock-on effect of this is we're actually challenging vendors now. So the usual vendors you have across policing have had to turn around and say, you know what, actually, we can't really start charging forces X, Y, and Z just to make a simple box, just to make it look pretty, just for a deliverable that's now going to take months, if not years down the pipeline. You know, they've got these capabilities with Power Platform, and that's only a good thing for policing. You know, challenge some of those vendors, because there's a lot that forces can now be empowered to do today. Thanks, Andrew. I'll leave you on to the next intelligent automation, one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic rundown, though. Thank you for that. It was really, really insightful as well. I think the other thing you alluded to, without making it the statement itself, is just the way that it protects the public purse as well. I think that's really, really important. That's one of the things that we really prioritise here. I think it's really important that that's brought out as well. So yeah, so Paul's favourite bit, certainly one of mine as well, is around intelligent automation. So this is more about So rather than what can we do with apps and replacing apps, this is more about how can we prioritize the activities that are more valuable? How can we reduce the time that's spent doing manual processes, manual intervention, manual tasks? So again, I've gone with kind of 3 headings here. So the first one, it's an interesting one around paperless. I think the reality in policing, paperless probably isn't a reality yet. I don't think it's that far off. And I've heard lots and lots of references around going paperless for years, it seems. And I think there are lots of processes within policing that can follow that method, that approach. If I think about case management, the ability to liaise throughout the justice system, cataloguing evidence, those things that you do now take so many hours, and it's those hours are spent on time-consuming manual processing. So it's not just the act of the manual processing, it's the mental tax that it puts on you as well, to make sure that you're reducing human error and all those sorts of things that play into those activities. You think about automation and integration by using Power Automate, that is certainly one way of addressing those specific challenges. This is something that I read that Microsoft actually put out in a blog not too long ago, and it talked about during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was, and I'd have to ask Paul or go and look at it, and we can share it after the event. But there's a survey that talks about officers being met with an unprecedented level of hardship and concern during COVID-19 because they were forced to go into a station to do paperwork on their cases. And if you think about if they had the ability to do that remotely or even automatically, that will not just increase the amount of time spent on the more valuable activities, being out in the public eye, working on cases, those sorts of things. It will actually improve their health and well-being as well. I found that was really insightful and really interesting about how if we'd applied these ideas earlier or sooner, and we'd introduced automation and some of this more intelligent workflow integration and automation, the improvements it would have on not just availability almost of officers and staff, but the health and well-being as well. In a recent National Police Safety Survey, actually, it estimated that officers spend at least 2/3 of their entire time on admin tasks and paperwork. So intelligent automation, which is made possible with the Power Platform and Power Automate, that can 100% be used to decrease many of those time-consuming and repetitive tasks that we've talked about. And I just want to repeat that 2/3 of an officer's time is spent on admin tasks and paperwork. That is such a heavy burden to put on them when obviously, general public and their perception of policing is impacted by visibility and all sorts of things like that. So some examples of where we think automation can come in and help within a force. So we're currently working with a force around stop and search and producing an app around that. There's also the use of force as well. And again, we're looking at pilot solutions around those at the moment. If I talk about use of force as an example, in my experience, that generally or commonly contains more than, I think, 9 pages, and they're filed every single time an officer needs to use force against a subject. But that's in addition to the already high caseload and case logging activity. If you think about automation and integration, you can start focusing on reporting, penalty processing, you've got evidence and case logging, all of that could be automated. And if you think about the knock-on impact of that, it's really enabling officers to spend much more time in the field, and it really reduces those kind of unnecessary trips to a station, which again, we talked about at the start, is clearly impacting on more than just time and cost, and again, impacting on those valuable activities that we all want our officers and staff to be doing. So automating business processes is a very, very common phrase now. It's very common. It's happening across industry. It's certainly becoming more and more prevalent with the forces that I'm speaking to and Microsoft are working with. I think it's fair to say that policing in the UK has only, I'm going back to, I'm crossing into your analogy a little bit here, Palm, but policing in the UK has really scratched the surface. So again, back to that kind of iceberg type analogy of what's possible with automation and with these low-code platforms. From the work that we've seen so far and some of the examples that Palm's already discussed, it's clear that automation's got a really big part to play in UK policing. It can be used to minimise those, minimise repetition. It minimises those manual tasks. It's an enabler for officers and staff, and it really can help reduce human error and more. Some of our clients are finding success through automation, and they're creating modern business processes without the wholesale kind of migration of underlying applications. That's another really positive thing. So we're not in a position where you need to rip out and put something new in. What currently exists can stay in place, but using the Power Platform and using automation, we can actually do integration between those and reduce or take out completely a lot of that manual work that's going on. That's only a positive. And when I think about a maturity path for these products and services, that is a key area to focus on first. And that's generally where most of our clients focus first. As they're building their skills and capabilities and they're maturing with these products and cloud services, they focus on, well, what can we integrate? What can we automate? Let's do that first before we start replacing applications and before we start to really be innovative. Let's actually scratch the surface and start to dig into those areas that will have some immediate impact. So automating business processes, it does give you the ability to minimize repetition, manual tasks. It enables end users. It can reduce human error. You start thinking about how by integrating applications, you can start to combine the intelligence that you've got across your application estate. You can automate some workflows. You can centralize your data, or at least get this seamless data integration. And ultimately, you're creating more time for officers and staff to drive the force forward. As I did before, there's some similar KPIs around here with automation. Reducing maintenance through IT is a big one. Increasing staff efficiency is a really big one as well. And similarly, again, improving that time to market or time to value. There's a significant number of use cases for automation. I'll try and give a few now. So improving productivity by integrating applications and automating workflows. So if you think about integrating or automating workflows between 365 and Microsoft Teams, for example, there's a good use case. Reducing the time and the cost that's spent on tasks, automating routine business processes between common applications and services. If you start thinking about utilising, and Palm touched on this as well, some of those built-in AI capabilities for automation, and then maybe extending things into portals to extend those capabilities to the wider justice system. They're all things and really good use cases. Moving from manual and repetitive or paper-based processes or to an environment that's focused on digital and cloud-based workflows and applications. I've touched on it a few times, connecting data seamlessly across all of your existing tools and platforms. That's a significantly important use case, especially as we start to mature this with forces. And then by leveraging the Power Platform, which is this low-code interface, you can really start to improve and ease the burden on IT around governance and security. And again, that's a really important use case. Similar to before, there's a number of questions we should and could be asking right now. There's questions I would certainly suggest asking each other and starting to ask decision makers in the business to help understand how this could be applied within your force. Do you have the ability to collaborate across your existing tools and software? Do you have lots of manual steps in your end-to-end service or in an end-to-end process that could be automated? Do you just have manual processes that you think could be automated, but you're not sure how? If you think about paper-based, do you have lots of paper-based processes that could be automated? Do you have data that sits in lots of different systems that you actually need to pull from in order to complete cases, in order to go through specific processes or specific services? And then how do you ensure that your data and your tools are governed correctly and are secure? These are the questions you should really be focusing on and should really be asking when it comes to automation.
Awesome, thank you for next slide. Right, so before I go into this really impressive use case, even I have to admit it myself, Just a quick couple of things to call out. So first, there was a great question in there. So I don't know, Andrew, if you just want to reply to that directly, but I just wanted to call it out, right? As part of those connectors, more than happy to explore this, right? This is exactly what we're after. We want to work across policing to say, yeah, let us in, let us help you with these custom connectors. Let's work with Visual and Microsoft together, and let's kind of explore what this can do. Absolutely. So feel free to either reach out to us afterwards, or if we have your details, and I'm sure the Visual team will get back to you. But that's exactly what we want, right? We want to encourage collaboration. We want to try and help with those kind of systems. Moving on to Power Automate, Andrew touched on some really interesting points, but there's two things I wanted to call out. Firstly is on the automation RPA front. Now, I know a lot of police forces are exploring RPA. They've adopted RPA and all sorts of stuff. And I just really wanted to be as brash and open as call it that. With Power Automate, there is RPA as a capability, and we're always making lots and lots of investment in this area. So you've got apps, you've got Power Automate using a flow, but you've also got Power Automate as RPA. Power Automate RPA with the Microsoft offering, because of the way we've packaged it up, it's actually 10 times, believe it or not, 10 times cheaper than a lot of the other vendors out there today. So not only can Microsoft add some extra funding into that, but actually from a cost perspective, it's significantly reduced. And you've got the same center of excellence, and you're using the same technology stack, and you can add in a Power App, and you can add in the Power BI, Power Virtual Agent. So that's just one thing to bear in mind when it comes to RPA. And again, as part of Visual and Microsoft, we have to take that offline as well. But intelligent safeguarding, let's start out what the challenge was. So I worked closely with the MPCC. They said, Palm, we've got a bit of a challenge, and it's around our most vulnerable in society. So victims of female genital mutilation, victims of honour-based violence. When they go to court, they get a protection order, an interim protection order. Now, as part of that interim protection order, there's a process that they have to follow, and the onus is on the victims to ensure policing is aware. Now, there's lots of, as we see across policing, right? We want to make things as easier for the victim as possible. And want to make things as streamlined as possible. But in this scenario, in the way with MOJ, with policing, and all across UK policing, not just one particular force. So the onus was, shifted more towards the victim to inform us, which is the most vulnerable in our society. And in some cases, if it's a young victim, it would actually fall onto family, which could be the suspects. And of course, one of the most important things, as I said before, I guess, there's lots of data in policing. There's one thing policing is rich of is data. But they don't have the insights. It's challenging to actually understand what is the meaning behind that data. What should you do next? So it's this problem where they came to us. So look, we want to try and improve a process where our most vulnerable people in society need to have protection orders in place. We need to ensure the local police forces, wherever they're based across the country, are informed. We need to ensure safeguarding measures are put in place. We need to understand data and insights. So this is what we came up with, right? So we changed the approach. So now Ministry of Justice, the victim basically is out of the loop completely. Ministry of Justice, email that to a particular mailbox. We use Power Automate to extrapolate the data of the PDF. So this is going back to AI Builder. So it's using the form recognizer to extrapolate the contents of the PDF. We're pushing that into Dataverse. So now all of a sudden, from what's just an email now is Dataverse, then all of a sudden you've got insights that straight away leveraged in real-time insights. That data, that PDF content, based on the victim's home address, again with Power Automate, there's now a rule in place to push that out to the local police force intelligence team. So where before there was roughly around 30% of protection orders, not really hitting policing mark, to 99% accuracy and everything coming through. The process is extremely streamlined now. Victim is out of the loop. We know safeguarding measures are put in place urgently. We know the right information goes to the right person at the right time. And of course, that data, the insights, the Power BI dashboards, that brings across a whole heap of understanding who these vulnerable victims are, which area, what the circumstances, and it allows them policing to put measures in place, makes it informed-based decision. So this is just a typical example of what you can do with Power Automate. And again, you can stand this up within weeks. So if you think of any kind of process, even if it starts from a PDF that's going to an email mailbox, even if it's someone that's trying to understand where that needs to go, you know, whatever the process, chances are you could probably automate it with Power Automate. If there's an extra element in there to try and go into your legacy systems to improve some of your most challenging apps, then of course, you know, you can create some custom APIs and we can push through to the system. Or in case if there's something really challenging, then why not leverage Power Automate RPA? You know, there's so much there that can be done. And again, it's significantly improved the way we work in this area. And those kind of safeguarding orders now, we're just increasing to almost everything. You know, it's really set the standard and set the benchmark. But it's just some of the examples of how the technology is improving and safeguarding citizens, right? It's not all about efficiencies. Of course, it's such an important point, but the end result is, how do we keep the citizens safe? How can we make evidence-based policing decisions? How can we improve the way officers work? And of course, that last one, improving the way police officers and staff work, you have to look at really the workforce. And, you know, we see it all the time. Unfortunately, lots of police officers and police staff leaving the organizations. You have a lot more less experienced officers on the street, and they use technology in the way they do at home. But when they go to policing, you almost have to de-skill yourself, and it almost becomes a bit too risky to try and do something else. But with that kind of front line, that's a younger front line that's used to this technology, you know, just by empowering them to be able to just do their job and just work for the way they should be working, like home, by having intelligent apps, just a chatbot to chat to, being signposted, even if it's around their own mental health and well-being, you know, all those different things will really make a difference to the front line. That's all I really want to share on the intelligent safeguarding. Andrew, over to you again.
Thank you, Palm. Really interesting notion there around some people needing to almost de-skill to be able to work in the force. That's really interesting. I hadn't considered that as much, but now I am, which is really interesting around our digital skills piece and what's coming next, actually. I just wanted to quickly touch on, and I've skipped forward quickly, but in the National Policing Digital Strategy, the 2020 to 2031, there's these data and technology enablers, key one being modernised core technology. Key part of that is around applications and predominantly focused on applications. So what obviously that strategy does is map out these enablers that are seen as ways to enhance or accelerate your services capacity to be able to adopt and implement some of these capabilities that are seen as critical as we head towards 2030. So this being a fundamental enabler, modernised core technology, we have an application service, a managed application service, which we're delivering to a specific force at the moment, and a few other public sector bodies. It's very much aligned to delivering the policing digital strategy. It's split into 3 phases, as is the digital strategy. And what we've got is we've got a range of activities that will occur in each phase. We can either transfer applications into a policing BAU service, or it could be transferred into the original managed application team. Generally, what happens in phase 1, that's about reviewing your application. So that's your as-is review, understanding your application's readiness for the cloud, understanding quick wins around automation, specifically focusing on the tools that we talked about today. And then upon completing that assessment, it's about devising a strategy that will rationalize and optimize your application estate. It will focus on migrating to the cloud, but it won't lose sight of opportunities to transform. So when we say transform, that could be introduce automation into an end-to-end service. That could be taking, if you treat a service end-to-end and identify the components, maybe there's 3 separate services or 3 separate products or applications that make up that service. Transformation is taking one out and replacing it with something that might improve the experience. It might take out significant manual intervention. It might introduce new features and new capabilities that make that end-to-end service much more pleasant for everyone involved. So when we say transformation, there's a multitude of options in that. What we also do is we focus on planning for change and adoption at this point as well. So it's no good rolling out technology and introducing new things if people don't use them or can't use them. And alongside change and adoption, we do a digital skills assessment, and that's all about mapping current capability against what future capability needs you will have. It's about understanding the current skills and the baseline of skills across your force, and then identifying where there will be training required. And back to Palm's point, are we actually de-skilling people by bringing them in? And can we identify champions or new leaders within that sphere from your workforce, whether they are frontline or back office? Phase 2, that's about drawing up plans and creating a roadmap for migration. And again, that's focusing on predominantly or primarily these low-code apps. So things that are low-code, low complexity that we can do quickly, getting those either transforming them or migrating some services to the cloud. And then where we get to the more high-end, more complex services, that's where there's more detailed planning, and that's where we introduce much more change and adoption in digital skills work. And it's at this phase, toward the tail end of that phase, where we start to transition some of these applications into either the managed application service or into a BAU service. And that's about optimizing them, continue developing them, and supporting them in the cloud. Phase 3, this is where the applications that we've identified for transformation are starting to be transformed. That's where we move them to the cloud. We potentially could rip them out and replace them entirely. This is where we look at the more modern tooling and cloud-based tooling, and we look at where we can introduce integrations and interoperability. And again, this is where we would enter into that managed application service. The focus here is to enable you to focus on value and innovation with the confidence that your applications are being taken care of. And that's what's really important as we get to that redefining expectations. So there's no longer an expectation around applications and some of the issues that you're probably facing, some of this manual intervention. All of those expectations get completely redefined, and you get a service that's specifically tailored to you and the applications that you're using and you're deploying to the force. So that brings us on to national skills. Palm, I'll hand over to you to start off with, if that's okay. Key thing I want to say here is, if you think about the digital policing strategy, again, talent in data and technology is a strategic enabler as well, and that's where we feel that this ties in really nicely.
Awesome, thank you. So just a quick few things for myself, really. So, I think we touched on right at the beginning around skills, and I think it's great to see the journey across policing as it's happening, as more forces are adopting Power Platform, as more solutions are being added to the catalogue, as more people are looking to actually adopt those solutions and share and collaborate on it. But what's actually that's bringing to the team, and I say to the policing team as a community, is around skills. We've got we're always throwing lots of different training and skills elements out there. And for example, if you just type in Microsoft training days in your search bar, you'll get virtual online training courses, and you've got Microsoft Learn as well. There's some great stuff there, including free fundamental certifications. What I want to try and do is take that to the next step. So I'm working closely with PDS, and we're trying to come up with a bit of a skills plan for policing around Power Platform. Ultimately, this is here to stay. We're seeing every police force make the most of Power Platform, and we just want to try and empower them and give them the tools and the skills to be able to carry that on. Andrew mentioned a great point around when people leave the organization with certain skills, and trust me, I've seen it. There's been some crazy VBA spreadsheets out there, and when one person leaves, and everything goes down the pan. We want to try and stop that. We want to try and share the skills, and actually it's only a good thing for policing. It's skills that's reusable. It's skills that means if you didn't want to stay in the job, of course it opens up other opportunities for you. But the great thing is we're always improving the Power Platform. Every year we make significant announcements in how it's being changed. If we add, for example, AI a bit more on this year, if we're changing the way it works within teams, different things there, and it's always going to be relatable. So I am working closely to try and come up with a bit of a skills plan, and it's something that I'll be sharing them in all due course. That's what it was for me, Andrew. Thank you so much.
No worries. I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot that partners can do to support Microsoft. I think there's a lot that partners can do to support their clients within policing as well, to make sure that this is really successful. I think skills for Visual is really important, and that's one of the things I wanted to touch on here, is that a lot of people see Visual as a service integrator, but the reality is we're also an education business. So Visual have an arm, it's called Visual Education, and they provide commercial accredited Microsoft based training. So you get badged and you get you get all that. But they also provide training for end users. You've got your IT professionals that can either get badged or just go through training specifically around new technologies. The end user training is more about how the technology is used and adopted, and we've also got an award-winning apprenticeship program which we'd also like to see introduced into much more into many more industries. And the key thing I think in policing is that it's about not devaluing what Palm said about you are de-skilling some people, but it's very much about how can we reskill and upskill the people that are currently in the force, and then how can we focus on kind of bringing in that new talent and growing our own talent with the skills that we're going to need in 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 or even 10 years time. So what we've done in Ridgewell is alongside the kind of standard program, standard portfolio of services, we've got a digital skills initiative. It's primarily focused on that upskilling and reskilling of staff. I suppose as an outcome of this, of the way that the service is delivered, you will be able to identify people that are being devalued or de-skilled as well. So that's another potential positive element that could come out of it. It's again delivered in a kind of 3-phase approach. There's lots of threes here. We begin with a digital skills assessment. So that's where we define not just what skills you have, but this is all about where do you want to go. So it's quite clear that there is a there's a not necessarily a push, certainly a recommended approach. There's certainly encouragement to move towards specific, to move in a specific direction, shall we say, and that does help with assessments of what skills you're going to need, not just now, but in the future. The digital skills assessment will help you understand, well, where do we want to go and how are we going to get there? And what the service will do, it will look at your service all up, so the force all up. So not just front line, but also back office. It will look at your IT operating model as well, and it will assess, well, what do you need today? What do you need in 5 years? What do you need in 10 years? And then it will build a skills profile and a persona profile for you to really help map and understand the gap that you've currently got, but map out, how you're going to get to where you want to go. So what we do is we shape surveys and interviews with staff, both again frontline and back office, and we really try to understand current skills. We make sure that they have the awareness of where policing is going. The likelihood is obviously they're really going to be attuned and tapped into it, but it's an opportunity for them to have an unbiased, free conversation where they can express their current skills, their current concerns, current perceptions, and we build that into a real plan for growth, a plan for adoption of technology, a plan for adoption of skills and development for the force. Based on the strategy, we put those plans in place to support, like I say, development plans. There's a real keen focus on like upskilling and reskilling staff. Now, Palm's mentioned it, we'll also be able to identify people that are already where we want them to be. They could be future leaders or champions that we can identify that have the skills already. It might also help you to identify where there's people that might not be, that might have the skills you need in another area where you can start to potentially bring those in or share those skills in a different way. At that stage, we tend to start talking about apprentices as well, and where or if they can benefit the service, and training is provided. So that's where we close those gaps. We focus on adoption activities, and we ensure that as you're introducing new technology, it's introduced in a way that's seamless, it's not disruptive, it's smooth, and it delivers benefits to the organisation really, really quickly. And then finally, as I alluded to it, we will help to identify champions and those future leaders. We'll provide the reinforcement training, so it's not good enough to just deploy technology. You really need to reinforce that. So there's lots of methods there around reinforcing, making sure that your change is sustainable and that you're staying on track towards that vision that we paint at the start, and also to help you kind of accelerate your transformation initiatives. And that, unless Palm, you've got anything to add, brings us on to offers. So we've got a very specific offer that aligns to this, and it's around Power Apps. We say Power Apps, but in reality, it's Power Apps and it's Power Automate. We kind of use them one in the same because a lot of the transformation, a lot of the innovation, a lot of the improvements we make with something like Power Apps requires that wider integration with other services across the force. So this is our Power Apps Accelerator, it really can help you pilot, and I'm going to stress the word pilot. It can really help you pilot a solution in as little as 5 days. And if you're looking for something more than a pilot, you want something like an MVP or you want something production ready, it is going to take more time. But if you're new to the technology, or maybe you've got an idea, you're not sure if it will work, this accelerator allows you to really pilot that idea and deliver something that can make a real impact on the business. And Palm alluded to it earlier, we're working with some forces where we're piloting or even potentially looking at an MVP solution for something that could be considered a national challenge, like stop and search or use of force, or potentially some other things around case management. And again, there's lots of stuff that's already been done as well. So where possible, where you've got an idea, we'll be able to bring to that discussion, to that forum where things have already been done, where there's a catalogue of something that may already exist. And again, that economy of scale really helps collectively policing really advance and accelerate transformation. So in terms of how it's delivered, and I mean, this table gives you an overview of kind of what's included in the service. But if I give you maybe a more detailed overview of the 5-day accelerator or the pilot that we talked about, on day one, that's where we call them business apps specialists, because generally they can interface into all of the Power Platform and also Dynamics. But let's say it's a Power Platform specialist. Alongside one of our business analysts, we'll work with you to truly understand what your current challenges are, what existing solutions you've got, and generally your kind of wider technology ecosystem. What we do at that point is we'll provide you with a real detailed overview of the Power Platform, all the components that make that up. We'll demonstrate to you how we've deployed the Power Platform. So similar to what we've done today, we'll demonstrate how we've done it for other clients. We'll cover a number of your use cases and help you identify some use cases as well. And in the hope behind doing that is that you'll generate lots of additional ideas for future work once we've gone through and developed the initial pilot. The day is it really is, alongside that, it's a deep dive into Power Apps and Power Automate. So we use a demo environment and we can explain to you how connectivity between the different products and plans works. And again, that sets us up really so that on the second day we can really start to plan around what your use case is and how we will deliver against it. So day two, that's where we recap the scenario that we talked about. That's where we review any additional ideas and we start to come up with ideas and recommendations. But it's where we confirm how we're going to apply the Power Platform to this very specific use case. We work with you, we develop a concept solution architecture, which is based on that use case. And we touch on where that will fit within your wider business strategy as well. We talk about the cloud adoption, the Power Platform adoption framework. And again, if you're, or the Centre of Excellence, if you're in a place where you can do that, that is how we would approach it. Some forces we speak to aren't quite at that level in terms of having the people in place to be able to have their own Centre of Excellence, but it will be addressed as part of this. And then what we do is at that point, we set the environment up so we can start to configure this pilot solution. So day 3 and 4, that's where we work with you. And again, we can come to site or you can do over the shoulder working. We're accustomed to all of that. And that's where on those 2 days, we'll develop this solution based on that scenario, and we'll utilize the Power Apps and Power Automate to do that. And then finally, day 5, we finalize development, we finish production of the app, and then we hand that over to you and we go through end-to-end testing and user acceptance testing as well, so that you can see how that can be applied, how it's used, and potentially start to see how it could benefit your organization in as quick as and as little as 5 days. Obviously, on here you can see there's an enhanced version and then there's more bespoke. What you'll tend to find is you'll be somewhere between enhanced and the pilot, but some of the more complex will be bespoke. And what we tend to do there is more pre-sales work and more of an assessment and a strategy. And back to the managed app service, that will be something that would come out of that first phase where we do that assessment and we start to strategize what we can transform and how. That is the offer, and it's back to you, I think, Caroline.
Thank you both. That was really, really interesting. So I think, and apologies, we have gone slightly over the hour. If anybody does have any questions, obviously you have the ability to ask any questions on this call. I think Molly, you can facilitate that, can't you, to see if there's any questions that come through. If not, we will hang around for a couple of minutes if somebody does have any questions. If not, then obviously feel free to reach out to us. My email address is Caroline S for Suter @ritual.com. So if you have any questions for Palm and Andrew that you wish to ask directly, then obviously we can facilitate that as well. But thank you for attending. As I said, we'll hang on for another couple of minutes in case any questions come through, but hope you've enjoyed the session today.
We did get a question in the Q&A, the live event Q&A. Palm's already replying. Perfect. I'll read it out just for everyone else and for the recording. So it's interesting to see that Power Apps can be used in conjunction with PNC. Lancashire has a Connect electronic case file system. Can Power Apps use Connect as a data source to create apps, or would this require additional work cost? I know, Palm, you replied in the chat. Do you want to come off mute and respond as well?
Yeah, no worries. I think I touched on it just before I just delivered my automation piece, but yeah, absolutely. You know, as I said before, there's something where this should be encouraged across policing. You know, ourselves and Visual. You know, it's about working together and supporting those custom connectors into those kind of applications, because that's when you really genuinely see the value of this, and that's how you extend Office 365, and that's how you will sweat the assets of all the investments you've already made. So yes, happy to explore that. Either reach out to Visual or myself directly, not a problem at all.
Thanks, Palm. We had I can't see any more coming through, and there's none that have been published. Is there anything else that we've had come in, Molly, or should we wrap it up? I think the key thing for anybody that's hung on or has enjoyed the session today, you can reach out to Caroline. You can also reach out via all the channels that are on the slide, and you can reach us, and we can support in any way. I think that's it then, guys. We'll wrap up there.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Right, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Come in. Bye-bye.
Okay.